Coming up on the live and interactive ACSA Legislative Lunch Break, Edgar and I will get you all of your latest news and information from the state capitol. There's a budget agreement in place. We've got Patty Herrera on the show today to talk about the state budget. Plus, we are celebrating our 5th anniversary. We're going to show you pivotal moments. We're going to show you some special moments and bloopers that I have not seen yet. So we're looking forward to that.
A very special edition of the Legislative Lunch Break starts now.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. We're so glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break, the very first edition of our show. Now that was an introduction. Welcome to the live and interactive ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. We're honored to have you, Dr. Edgar Zazwata, ACSA's Executive Director. I'm Naj Alikan, ACSA's Senior Director of Marketing and Communications. Welcome to this 5th anniversary special edition of the Lunch Break. Edgar, that is quite an open, and we certainly have a lot to celebrate.
Wow, that's quite a setup. One that I don't know if we're gonna live up to the hype here, but I'm excited to be here, Naj. Happy 5 years to you, yes. To Michael, to Gianna, to everybody that makes this happen. Just like it's been a ride, right? And it's just, think back on those 5 years and what started. And I know, well, we have to give a little bit of credit to some other people here. Well, we'll get to that, but just, you know, like just this vision of trying something new here. And I'm just, like we've said many times, just humbled that, you know, week in and week out, people still tune into this. People still ask us about this. So yeah, it's been quite a journey and an unexpected one, but this is cool. And I loved even reliving some of those moments there.
Yeah. We've got a really special show for you today. We've got a few special guests, some appearances from people that you know in the education world, and some great pieces. Bloopers are coming up. Pivotal moments are coming up. We're really, really excited about all.
I'm really nervous about that, Naj. I didn't know, nobody sent any videos to me to clear before we were going to show them and whatnot. So I know that's always, you know, that we'll see what happens there, but I trust you guys, I think.
Look, I haven't seen a lot of these pre-produced pieces either. I'd seen that one. Other than that, I have no idea what our team behind the scenes has put together. So we're excited to see everything that comes up in the show. Edgar, let's get some headlines in right now, because there is a budget agreement in place that is going to the governor's desk. That was announced this morning. Now, lawmakers, as you know, were forced to create a budget framework that addressed a $12 billion budget shortfall. That was caused, as the governor said in his May budget revision, by economic uncertainty. Lawmakers are having meetings today, and a vote could come Friday or Monday, according to our friends at KCRA TV. We'll talk with Patty Herrera from School Services about the budget coming up in just a moment. Also want to tell you about this story that came down this morning. The U.S. Department of Education formally declared California was in violation of Title IX by allowing transgender females to compete in girls' and women's athletic events. The federal government has given the State Department of Education and the California Interscholastic Federation, CIF, 10 days to agree to several changes or, quote, risk imminent enforcement action. The changes include immediately barring biological males from female sports and rescinding all titles awarded to transgender female athletes. And according to the San Francisco Chronicle, restore any prize won by a transgender athlete to the next placing biological female athlete. Spokesperson from Governor Newsom's office suggested, according to the Chronicle, that California did not intend to comply with the department's demand. So, Edgar, a couple of big stories there. That one, you and I just briefly talked about that, but that came down this morning. So certainly, we've heard this from the federal government. They've given 10 days notice on several things. This one now demanding a response from Department of Ed and from CIF.
Seems like things are coming to a head, right? We've been having this conversation for months. It started with the investigation. It got escalated. We referenced some of our conversations with our state officials. I think this is now where it's gonna push come shove. We're gonna see how real is this threat, right? I think what you just said, Naj, we've been in communication. We don't have a unilateral answer of how a final answer, I should say, of how the state's going to respond. But I think the governor's office, the Department of Ed had been relatively consistent. So now what happens now, right? What is it? Do the feds go through with their quote unquote threat about looking at federal funds? Is that even legal for them to do that? And we've been talking about that. I'm the first to admit, I've been saying this amongst some superintendent groups over the last couple of weeks. I used to kind of downplay this whole notion when we talked about federal funds. Okay, are they really going to try to strip some of that? Is that just rhetoric? And not to say that anything of this would be legal or would stand the scrutiny of the courts, but I hate to say, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some attempt to not, distribute funds or just to hold them. I mean, all bets are off. The one thing we've said, and we've said many times, I think we'd be foolish not to think that the federal administration will take some action. Now, whether that will hold, a lot to be seen. I know our folks are trying to see what the impact's going to be. We're in communication with the state, been in communication with CIF. So I think it's obviously this just came down earlier today. So we'll keep a close watch on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep an eye on that one. And again, Patty Herrera from School Services of California will be here in just a couple of minutes to talk to us about the state budget. So during our 5 years, we've had a number of pivotal moments, some when we've been reporting and others that we weren't expecting. Take a look.
We love working here. We love our members. But as I've been saying all week long, it's not lost on me. This is not our organization. This is our members' organization. Yeah.
This time last week, Dr. Pan was here on our show discussing his proposed vaccination legislation. It wasn't 24 hours after the show before he pulled it from the current session.
Advocacy, especially these days, kind of takes many different forms. And this show has been a mechanism for advocacy. When families and parents and kids are afraid to go to school, it's going to obviously impact their learning. And it's hard not to get a little emotional about this. Like some of this is personal. I mean, the whole birthright citizenship, we haven't talked about this, Naj. I wouldn't be a U.S. citizen if that goes into place. My father came to this country, wasn't fully documented at the time.
Tony, it seems to me you're out in the wilderness. That's what it looks like.
Well, the reality is that we're all in the wilderness right now.
Don't we want to be on the forefront of really empowering our staff and empowering our students to know they are cared for, they are seen, and we want to create the best possible situation so that they can thrive in their childhood and not hide in their childhood.
We're trying to be authoritative. We're trying to be aggressive on this front. And we know sometimes that's going to ruffle some feathers.
We've always wanted breaking news to happen at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays. And then, we say it out loud and then we have a whole lot of it.
This is an assault on public education in America. I'm extraordinarily concerned for our nation's public schools, for our teachers, for our students. How this movie ends, I'm not sure.
Let's go ahead and get you right to the information. Of course, we had the announcement from the governor about 90 minutes ago on the new masking guidance.
I think about that picture that's behind you there, the picture of Ruby Bridges. And when you look at that picture, who's walking with her? Federal marshals, because the state did not want her to have access to education.
I get excited when we see the comments and people messaging us after the show. So I'm glad we've been able to build a little virtual community here every week.
Yeah, a virtual community indeed, Edgar. That's one of the things that I think you and I have really appreciated, especially at the beginning of this show. Those early months when there was not the ability for people to connect, when they were on the show in our chat section, they were solving problems for each other. It was this aspect of the comment section that you and I didn't expect.
Yeah, and it almost became like therapy, I know, for some of our leaders, just because everybody was facing the same challenges and pressures. And, and yes, we came in here to give information and give updates, but oftentimes it was for folks just realizing, yeah, it kind of sucks right now, but at least I'm not alone in this. And, and to the extent that ACSA can help a little bit on that front, it's probably some of the times, despite our blurry and, askew camera angles. I mean, maybe some of those early shows are some of the ones that I'm most proud of, just for that reason.
Yeah. Folks, we want to give you some legislative lunch break by the numbers. We've done 180 shows through the first 5 years. 2 former secretaries of education. You saw them in that video, Arnie Duncan and John King. We've had 13 California state lawmakers interviewed on this show, 168 unique guests. Edgar, you and I have done 151 of these shows together. The next most appearances as a co-host or as a staff member, that number is 27, and that belongs to Megan Bear.
Congratulations, 5 years of the Legislative Lunch Break. That's quite an accomplishment. It's been awesome to see you all host so many different shows and interview so many guests. I've been honored to be one of those guests a few times over the years, and I can't wait to see where the show goes over the next couple of years. Congratulations.
Congratulations to ACSA on 5 years of the Legislative Lunch Break, where we at Capital Advisors have been occasionally complicit in interrupting your sandwich with breaking news, budget battles, and enough acronyms to make your PB&J cry. From LCFF to LCAP to OMG, they're debating school meals. Again, the Legislative Lunch Break has really covered it all. So thanks to you, Naj, and to Edgar, the whole team at ACSA, for this great resource. It's been really, really valuable. Through the late reports, the legislative meltdowns, the occasional oops that Mike was on, you guys have been great. And thanks to the viewers who were either pretending to watch while actually working or actually watching while pretending to work. In either case, it's been great to be with you. So thanks so much for including us, and congratulations.
Look at Kevin Gordon just coming up with some humor there, Edgar. I certainly appreciated that. We've talked about the 5 Timers Club here. Kevin Gordon, 5 appearances on the lunch break. Reg Lichty, from Foresight Law and Policy, 6 appearances, and our good friend Patty Herrera with 7 appearances here on the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. We figured this was a great time to bring our great friend Patty Herrera, Executive
Dr. Herrera
Vice
is not
President.
competitive at all. I mean, I'm sure she was not thrilled. Yeah. I'm sure the fact that she's getting another appearance here,
right,
to add to those numbers, means something.
Oh yeah, I was telling John yesterday. I said, "Guess what I'm going to be doing tomorrow? How many times have you been on?"
This counts as appearance number 8, if I'm correct, Patty. So thanks so much for joining us here. We went from budget surplus at the start of the year to a deficit as we sit right now. It's up to the legislature to balance the budget. From your experience with the state budget, how does this year compare to other years where the legislature has to go about making cuts to fix a deficit?
I mean, we've certainly had years where we were projected to have a surplus in January, and then a sharp swing downward in May. Probably the most recent one that we're all familiar with, right, is the year that COVID-19 became part of our daily lives. And that was a significant swing down, much more significant than what we were facing in May, and what the legislature and the governor through this budget agreement are trying to address with the $16 billion budget deficit. So it's not anything that we're not familiar with. However, one of the things that I worry about is that this is could become a trend. And I don't know what's necessarily causing that, if it's just the volatility in the economy, the volatility in general fund revenues because of our reliance on the state's top income earners, or if it's just some budget practices that we've sort of adopted as part of our annual state budget process. And nevertheless, I feel like these swings are just becoming a little bit more frequent than we're used to.
Patty, thank you as always for helping us out with this. And I mean, we couldn't do it without you and the help of school services. Yes, even John. And and I will point out, I have to,
Even
Megan's
John.
appearance count would have been higher if our friends, at school services didn't take her away there. But she's still part of the family, and everybody's part of the family. So
yeah, we'll give her back whenever you want her. For
she's gotten a couple appearances there to add on. Patty, as you told us many times, since even going back to, I think, to like the LOO report in the fall, and then when the January budget came out, that this is always going to be a story, not necessarily just of the budget as it comes out this year, but even then the out years, right? And so as we're trying to talk about this, where did they come to terms for this year? We also know there's uncertainty as we move on beyond next year. So what is your perspective of the latest forecast? I know we always talk about uncertainty, and that hasn't stopped, right? The tariffs, the state revenues, as you talked about, the global economy, there's more uncertainty in the Middle East. So just to reiterate what you've already been telling us, kind of what are the risks out there moving forward?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, the Wendy McCaskill, one of our directors here at School Services, she just attended the UCLA Anderson forecast, the summer forecast. And they acknowledge that there's just a lot of uncertainty that the economy faces, particularly because of federal action related to trade, the things that we've come to know as tariffs. And also now geopolitical unrest, particularly what's transpiring in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, and the United States' recent involvement in terms of targeting 3 nuclear sites in Iran. The dust hasn't settled on that recent action over, I think it was either Sunday or Monday when that happened. And so we don't really know what's going to transpire in the Middle East, but we also know this. We know that we rely on our partners, our trading partners in the Middle East for oil and gas. And so to the extent that regional conflict protracts or even worsens, it could contract oil supply in the nation, throughout the world, and we could see that have an inflationary effect, on gasoline and other products that rely on oil. And so that could have a pretty significant effect on the direction of the overall economy. Hopefully that doesn't turn out to be the case, and then we've still got, tariffs and tariff discussions happening in the world that could go either way. Our trading partners could enter into really productive negotiations with us that could, turn those headwinds into positive things for the economy, but they could not, and that could actually worsen conditions for the economy. With respect to federal policy, I don't know if you guys have been watching the news lately, but the one big beautiful bill that's going through Congress right now, there's a lot of GOP congressional and senators, congressmen and senators who are raising concerns about the impact on the Medicaid cuts. And Medicaid cuts to Medicaid would have significant impact on the California state budget. And to the extent that GOP concerns moderate, federal action on Medicaid, that could actually be a positive thing for the California state budget, right? We just don't know. And unfortunately, there are just too many unknowns that could swing one way or the other. So this is really, I'm finding myself in a position that I've never found myself in before, which is that I usually have a feeling of, whether or not things are going to improve or whether or not things are going to worsen. I really don't know. Mm-hmm. And a lot of this is man-made. They're not natural events. Right?
Patty, let me ask, in this budget, and I know that it hasn't been officially signed. I know that there's an agreement in place, but then it's going to go to the governor. Is there one thing that's going to surprise you that comes out of this budget, at least from what you're able to hear right now, and maybe something that could be overlooked that's important to our members?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't honestly, nothing was surprising to me. I think what was surprising to me is that when the legislature adopted its budget last week, I think that was last week, sorry, my time is merging together for me. But when the legislature adopted their budget, their Proposition 98 package was significantly different from what the governor proposed in May, right? January, and then modified again in May. The biggest one, of course, the one that I kind of picked up on, was the student support and professional development discretionary block grant, right? The governor proposed $1.7 billion. This was going to be big for our local educational agencies across the state of California, and the legislature proposed to slash that down to $500 million, right? It's huge impact on LEA programming and budgeting. So what surprised me, I guess, in coming out of the final deal is how closely the final Proposition 98 package really mirrors the governor's May revision. So what and I was looking at it, comparing the final budget deal to the legislature's package to the governor's May revision this morning in anticipation of this show, to really see like where did these changes occur, and really a lot of it was at the cost of sort of some of the legislature's priorities within the Proposition 98 package. But from January to May to final budget adoption, not too big differences. I think so. That's part of your question, Naj. I think for me, if I'm a school district and I'm looking at all these investments in the budget, one of the things that I would like to draw attention to is that there's a bunch of investments in the budget. Many of those are one-time investments, right? And so we're seeing this, like there's this incongruence in the Proposition 98 budget. Not anything that's not normal. It's normal for us to have one-time investments and ongoing investments in the LCFF and whatever. But there seems to be more and more one-time investments than there are in core investments, right? There's not many like ongoing investments, and that's just because of what's happening in the minimum guarantee. So that's the other thing that your second question, Naj, about what should our LEAs be looking out for, and it's this. I mean, it's this. We have some money to spend down on one-time investments in the final budget package. They're still holding to the governor's May revision estimates for the minimum guarantee in 2025, 26, right? The final budget package estimates the current year guarantee or in 24, 25 at $120 billion. In 25, 26, that drops down to below $115 billion. So we see an overall $5 billion drop in the minimum guarantee. Based on like the governor's estimates from the May revision, we in 2026, 2027, we get back up to $118 billion. It's still year over year growth from 25, 26 to 26, 27, but it doesn't restore us to the level of the current year, not until 27, 28, right? And so what my point of that is, we're going to be in a maintenance situation for the foreseeable future and for our LEAs out there through their multi-year projections.
Patty Herrera, Executive Vice President, School Services of California. Patty's 8th appearance here on the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break.
I'm wearing my green jacket, Naj, because you guys didn't give me my master's jacket, so I just created one for myself.
Edgar has signed off on it, Patty. Yeah. We just passed our own budget, so Edgar signed off. We're good. Thanks, Patty, so much for joining us.
Always good to be here.
So we've been doing the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break for 5 years with Edgar and I hosting, but the lunch break wasn't our first time on camera. This is back, our budget broadcast, January 2016. It's the first time we appeared together. We've shown you this video before, but here's the actual video. We look so much younger. My hair is different. That facial hair is awful. You're clean shaven. I mean, there's so much that we could dive into with this particular video. But we wanted to show you not just this, but some of the other Edgar and Naj moments that came after.
It's a Wednesday. I'm here with you, Naj. Only a few other places I'd rather be.
You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me.
It's my understanding several members wanted photos of you and your autograph. Did I hear that correctly?
From your nice warm bed. You just remember what your old pal said.
When I showed my daughter, she goes, "Oh, look, you and Edgar got your prom photos framed. Isn't that nice?" Edgar will take pictures with anybody. He'll sign as many autographs as possible.
I kind of missed you. Well, not really, because I see you every day. So
Right.
I didn't really miss you.
You got a friend in me.
All right, so Edgar, you were complaining that I didn't give you enough time to talk. So now, here we go.
Ain't nothing that I won't do for you.
I didn't know you were going to, Naj.
I am going. Yes.
I'm gonna pretend I don't know you on the plane, then I'm just gonna walk by.
Yes, you got a friend in me.
Edgar, good seeing you. I promise I won't talk to you again until next Wednesday. I think what's good about that is that you and I used to get mistaken for each other all the time.
Yeah.
And now we don't, because I think that we're more recognizable now. Maybe.
Yeah, yes, we used to get that a lot. What people don't know is that Naj and Edgar have zero interaction outside of this, us at the venue. We just pretend to not know each other. No, in all seriousness, Naj, that was great. Kudos to Michael for pulling up all those. I can only imagine the man hours there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
that was
exactly. Awesome. Folks, we've had Tony Thurman on our show 3 times, the state superintendent of public instruction, as I said, 3 times. We've seen him on the side of the road where he's broadcast from. We've got his Super Bowl picks, which I don't remember whether they were good or not. We've also heard that his favorite sandwich is a Philly cheesesteak. He sent this message to celebrate our 5th anniversary.
Hey everybody, Tony Thurman here, California State Superintendent of Public Instruction. It's my honor to serve our 1,000 school districts and our 10,000 schools. And today, to say congratulations to the ACSA Legislative Lunch Team on 5 years of providing great broadcasts about important issues affecting schools across our state. You know, information is so critical. And so thank you for the 180 broadcasts that you provided, live and interactive. I want to give a big shout out to Naj Ali Khan and to Dr. Edgar Zasueta, the hosts, for putting on these great interactive lunchtime conversations. Everybody knows Wednesday at 1, the place to be is in the room with the ACSA Legislative Lunch Conversation. And so congratulations on your great work over these 5 years. Here's to the next 5 years. Thanks for having me on and for having guests on where we can talk about the issues in a short, crisp, interesting fashion. Thanks for what you do and for getting the news out and the information out to all the members of ACSA. Congratulations.
Thank you so much for that, Tony. Indeed, the first time Tony was with us was on the side of the road. And I do remember that the story of one of his staff members was having to hold the computer as straight as possible so he could broadcast.
I remember the stress that Michael was undergoing there, trying to get him from, to get him on camera. So yeah. I'm glad that worked out.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and bring in our next live guest, returning to us here on the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break, Wes Smith, the superintendent of the Newport Mesa Unified School District and ACSA executive director when schools went out due to the pandemic and we launched the show. Wes, I'm going to give you the numbers right here. This is your 9th appearance on the Legislative Lunch Break, 7 as a guest, 1 as a co-host, and now you are here for your 9th appearance. I have to ask you, we talked so much about the importance of communication at the start of the pandemic and throughout your time and then Edgar's time here. There was a lot of information, a lot of decisions being made for school leaders here in California. And we were looking for opportunities to collaborate, find ways for our members to be able to communicate. How important was it for us to be able to get our message and unite school leaders during that time?
Yeah, great question. And, knowing me as well as you do, I'm not going to answer that right away.
Yeah, I was like, Wes is not going to go there first.
Yeah,
He's going to have some things to say.
First off, the highlight of the 7 appearances, I just got to follow our state superintendent. So that's pretty cool. And then, Kevin Gordon, as you pointed out with his humor bit, we all know Jack wrote that for him. And I'm sure afterwards he was like, dude, you rushed 2 of the punchlines, No, but hey, kudos to you and the team. And then, the question, 5 years ago, March, when the governor shut down the state, as it turned out, 2 days later, I had to drive legal documents to San Francisco, or else members of ours were going to be in a lot of trouble. And I drove all the way to San Francisco from Sacramento, saw 1 car and 1 person walking the streets of San Francisco. And I got back. And then you'll remember we had our cabinet meeting that next week. Mm-hmm. And the question wasn't, what are we going to do? What the hell is going on in California? The question was, how do we save public education? And how do we keep the lights on at ACSA so that the advocacy for students, right, at the time 6.2 would continue? And that was the proposition. And one of the things that we recognized were people were alone. They felt isolated. Yes, they needed information, but also people were struggling almost right away with that isolation. And you'll remember we started with common purpose, uncommon times, right? And it was like a fireside chat. Let's bring our members together once a week and we'll tell stories and we'll let them share what's going on, talk about their fears, have some motivational stuff, and give some updates. And I was producing by myself, if you will. We had IT, give me the tools, and I guess you'd call it producing. My internet didn't work. I wasn't very good at it. I didn't have a co-host. Many hands make light work. I was by myself, right? But we struggled through it. Finally, Michael said, "Hey, Wes, but we should have a split screen with Michael, by the way, because he does so much of this work." He was like, "Let me produce the show. We'll at least make you look better than you currently look." And so we started to do that. And we were in the room, ACSA was, more than any other management group at the time. And that's true. The governor's office every day was getting hold of us. And so we were able to, more than just once a week, get information in front of folks. Well, you guys started your work, and every week people were able to get some answers. And they changed every day. Like we would say, there are innumerable questions. There are very few answers, and the answers we get today will be different tomorrow. And you guys were able to come on with your great interactions, but even greater information, and unite our members and give them really, really useful information and take their feedback. So you listened to them and then advocated at the state level. Your show was so good that it killed mine, because the camera adds 10 pounds. So I was happy to move away from there. But what you've done and how long you've done it is a testament to the impact it has on our members. And look, most importantly, their schools, their classrooms, and every single student inside those classrooms. So kudos to all of you guys. And we don't want to forget too that your team, right? With Michael behind the scenes, at a virtual superintendent symposium, got an interview with the governor and committed him to reopen schools without a vaccine mandate and all of these other provisions that if he'd agreed to, we never would have opened schools in California for another year. Your team facilitated that. So kudos to you guys.
Wes, thank you for that. And thank you for all the kind words. Naj, if I heard correctly, Wes had a lot of nice things to say, but I also heard he was a better co-host than you because you have a partner. He had to do it by himself.
Yep.
So that's saying that that's kind of what I heard.
I was literally writing that down, like, oh, this is Wes is saying all these nice things, and then he
I just want to make sure you caught
throw in the dig right there.
In all seriousness, Wes, I mean, and we talk about this, and I think you pointed out, I actually think that moment with Governor Newsom will go down as one of the highlights in ACSA history. Talk about making a difference. We pointed out one of the pieces there
when we got policy change based on guest here on the lunch break. I think that was another one, and it was all in the extension of that. And I think your vision of trying to figure out some way for us to continue to connect with folks is not lost on us. So thank you for your leadership there. Although I will say all those blurry videos, you know, when we go to those clips and it's kind of blurry and the camera angles, that's all your fault, because the internet wasn't good. You know, you didn't upgrade the internet. So that's why we were facing some of those technical difficulties. But
and I didn't authorize good tools for the team.
Yeah,
you know, I gave you the old Apple computer.
Yeah,
you know,
well, hey, we made do. We made do there.
But I gave you a bunch of floppy disks. I said you have as many floppy disks as you would like to run your show.
As many as we need, that's for sure.
Hey, Wes, I'm curious. I know, obviously, and we're so fortunate. And I know when you left here, you know, one of the things that brought us solace is that, like, hey, you're going to be part of now one of our leaders and going to get to influence that. And you've been back in the school district for a few years now, and just curious about your reflections. Have you stepped away from this systemic work at ACSA? Like how ACSA, you talked about some of those examples of how ACSA has influenced our members, how it's influenced your leadership. And I know one of the things that you were always very consistent about is that ultimately this work is about the students. Just any reflections as you sit back here being away from this place for a few years.
Yeah, I mean, I was convinced before I took the job, was blessed to have an executive director, that ACSA was essential for public education to survive in California. And now being back in the work, I'm even more convinced. You know, you've always been the association that puts students first. Most associations are membership associations, and they act accordingly. It's our members and then the students. And I think what's unique about ACSA is they come from that student-centric disposition, and that's powerful. You've always fought for a budget that prioritizes our students and public education, and you fought hard for that. And then I think the other thing that you do really well, and all of us in the field appreciate it, is you have timely advocacy. So things are going on in the moment, and you're able to pivot into focus and to make sure that, again, those students, and not just some students, but all students, right, are being served. I think about your advocacy around what's going on in immigration concerns right now. Last night, we had 7 students speak at a board meeting about their fears. Many of them cried, right? And we're at summer school. These kids were afraid because they were going to summer school classes. Just think if we were fully open right now. And you're out there fighting the fight, and we need you to fight that fight. We need you to make sure that we in California, as we enforce California laws, that we're protected from federal influences that would try to stop us from educating our students, all of them, feeding our students, and keeping them safe while they're with us, right? So you guys have done a great job in all of those instances and more. You know, I think about how you've lifted up the issues of LGBTQ plus youth and administrators, that you were the first association to create that affinity group and to celebrate publicly that affinity group. And now we see suicide hotlines being taken away for a student population that's 4 times as likely to attempt suicide. You know, what are we thinking at that level? But fortunately, you're here. You're here to fight for those things. And we will help you keep public education lights on. We'll help save this system, and we couldn't do it without you.
Wes Smith, Superintendent of Newport Mesa Unified School District, our former executive director here at ACSA, with his ninth appearance. Wes, it's been great having you. We look forward to having you next time.
Yeah, great seeing you guys. By the way, I think we should make the Trojan the symbol for ACSA, like its motto, because, and I'll tell you. Now listen, Naj, listen, I think you're going to like this. All right, let me pitch this. You know, the Trojans talk about fight on, right?
Right.
And I've adapted it, and it's like ACSA. We fight for and we fight on. We fight for kids, no matter how hard it gets. We fight on. Now, come on, that's a motto.
Made a pretty compelling case there, Naj.
Hold on. All right. See, so I'm pulling out the Penn State helmet, Wes, because we are. How about if we just go with we are ACSA, then we don't have to deal with any of that USC garbage.
It's not a bad one. It's not a bad one. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Wes.
guys. Appreciate you both.
Thanks, Naj.
Appreciate it. Folks, we have some really impactful moments that have taken place here that we have shared with you. Moments that really changed our lives. And we were able to share them with all of you. Let's take a look back at some of those key moments.
Quick shout out, Michael Kelly and his family. Congratulations.
That's right.
Baby.
That is Deacon James Kelly, a new member of the ACSA family, Edgar.
Naj, aside from being, fantastic co-host, he's been working hard. He's been going to school, and he just completed his master's degree in strategic communications from Penn State University.
We have a new addition to our family. Gianna Miller is a first-time mother. This is Lewis Allen Miller, born on October 16th, 9:28 p.m. My daughter graduated from Pleasant Grove High School, Elk Grove Unified School District. She's the one in the hat in that photo.
What a great time in the Alakan household, just you guys celebrating so many of these accomplishments.
Our producer, Gianna Miller, this is her brand new baby boy, Dominic, born at 5:59 p.m.
She's got her hands full now. Two babies with in diapers.
This guy may be familiar to some of you. That is Edgar's son.
That was unexpected. Bald dude comes through, gives it to Nico, makes Nico's year, celebrates with the emphatic high five.
And you make it on TV. We at ACSA, very, very thrilled to have our new executive director. And of course, that is my co-host, Dr. Edgar Zazwata. Certainly some great moments that we were able to share with you. It's just part of our family here on the Legislative Lunch Break to be able to share not just your stories, but our stories as well. So
I'm still embarrassed how scared I was when they pulled up.
I know, seriously. I
was legit scared. Yeah,
I was so afraid that you were going to have a health scare right there, and that all of us were in on.
I had to call Wes back to come back.
Folks, if you're tuning in late, we invite you to watch the beginning of the show. We've got our budget update, but of course we're celebrating our 5th anniversary here, which is why we are well past the bottom of the hour. Now, I bring up this discussion because of a quick discussion I had with my wife this weekend, because I told her, hey, they're going to have this whole blooper reel on there, and I have no idea what this looks like. And she said, there's been like 180 shows and you've co-hosted 99% of them. How do you not know what is in this blooper reel? So either I didn't make any bloopers or we just weren't paying attention to anything that was taking place. But here you go. Here are the bloopers from 5 years of the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. We welcome you on a Wednesday to the ACSA Legislative Lunch Break, along with Dr. Edgar Zazwata, ACSA Senior. All right. I literally was going to put a piece of paper up here. ACSA's Executive Director.
I've heard. I really love the legislative break zone. That was one. When is your lunchbox on? They still find time to get back to ACSA. Sorry.
Look at that. You didn't follow the rules, Edgar. Did I come back?
We welcome you.
Uh-oh. We already lost Michael. You remember that guy, right?
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, when you put him on me.
My shirt. Oh.
Yvonne, who's talking to you? All right. Is my microphone working yet? Oh, we're still working on technical issues. Megan, how are your technical issues back there? You ready to go? We will be back here next Wednesday at 1 p.m. for another edition of the ACSA Legislative Lunchbox. Lunchbox.
You called it the lunchbox. For all as mad as you would get, you messed up the name. I was actually a little worried in Tony Thurman's segment earlier.
he was on the brink. I was like, oh, is he gonna go to Lunchbox? That's gonna piss Naj off.
I know. And then what's the last blooper on there? It's me
Yeah.
calling it incorrect. Hey, we do want to show you just really quickly. The very first non-ACSA guest that we had on the show was episode 3. That was Tom Armelino, the at that time the executive director of the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. It is safe to say, as you watch this, that every day is now a Saturday for Tom.
Hey, Naj and Edgar. Hey, congratulations. I just appreciated the opportunity to serve at that time. It was a crazy time in California and everywhere with the whole pandemic, and ACSA was just doing great work, trying to reach their members. It's great to see you folks are still moving forward, and you're under your leadership of Edgar and, of course, with my beautiful wife, Margarita, of continuing to focus on members and doing the legislative luncheon. Anyway, wish you well, men. Continue to do the great work, and I'm off to the golf course.
See, I told you, every day's a Saturday in Tom's life, right?
We will all aspire to be there. You know, some of our members choose to tune in to watch this on their lunch break. I just think they're rubbing it in, but you know, we'll get there.
What are you going to do? 5 years, Edgar. What are your final thoughts here?
Well, first, just a sincere thank you first to you, Naj. And I know, like we say it all the time, we get on here and, you know, and we get to give the updates and whatnot, but it's the tremendous amount of work. Obviously, Michael Kelly, just of all the work, his vision on this. I know he put in weeks, literally weeks, just to pull up all of these clips and whatnot. Gianna, who's right there with him in terms of just interacting with our folks, getting us the content, making us look good. Or even when we don't look good, it's not their fault. That's your fault, Naj.
Yeah.
But you know, just a sincere thank you to the whole team, and then everybody behind it at ACSA, the government relations team who gets us the content. You know, your entire team, Naj, the marketing team, everybody, right? Like, I think one thing that I reflect on, Wes was giving us thanks, and he said a couple times, you know, you, right, referring to ACSA. And obviously for Wes, my first instinct was not you, because it's us, because Wes was part of us. But that's not really the us. And I think we said it in a couple of the clips. What makes this place, and not this virtual place, but these, you know, this logo that everybody cares so much about at ACSA, what makes it powerful is that it's not us here in Sacramento, the staff, it's our membership, it's our folks, it's our leaders, right? And it's the reason that I came to work at this place, because of Wes and Wes recruiting me here, of the power of just having the 18,000 plus members to be able to be their voice in Sacramento, around the state, to be be part of their journey. I mean, I think it's the reason I love this place. It's the reason I love this team, and just fortunate to have this avenue to share some of that with our great leaders across the state.
Yeah, and obviously a big thank you to you, Edgar. This has been an incredible relationship that you and I have built here as co-hosts, but then as soccer coaches and dads of teenagers and dads of young kids, all of that. A big shout out to Michael Kelly, who helped envision this show, and Gianna Miller, who runs our social media and then also produces. And to all of our viewers, I'm just looking, I can't name them all, because I'm going to miss people, but I'm just looking through the comment section today. Some of our most loyal viewers are there, some of whom had video pieces in our show today. It's an honor to work with all of you, for all of you, an honor every week for us to put this show together. Yeah, definitely a moving 5 years to 5 more years of this. Let's do it. Folks, thank you so much for joining us here on the live and interactive ACSA Legislative Lunch Break. A reminder, we are live Wednesdays, 1 p.m. on ACSA Facebook, ACSA YouTube, and ACSA LinkedIn. Have a great rest of the day and rest of the week, and we'll see you next time.